I'm chewing. What's up? Welcome to Comic Books Transformed. I'm Pete, and on Comic Books Transformed, we talk about comics that have been adapted into streaming shows and movies. Today, we are talking about one of our very favorite shows, The Boys, which is on season 4. Brian, did you know that The Boys have gone woke?
Have they?
That's one of the.
I didn't know that at all. You'd never be able to tell anything about that from the show from watching any episode.
Yes, that's one of the main complaints. People were saying that the show has gone down in viewership, and they said that the show has gone woke. And I was like, oh, you guys are just catching on to that now, huh?
Yeah, it's. I mean, it was super obvious at the end of last season.
Yeah.
Prior, I'm surprised. It's almost like when you hear Republicans being surprised that Rage Against the Machine is not for them.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this show wears its politics on its sleeve, and I do think that we don't really see a kind of a parroting of like the other side. We don't see a parroting of like the left as much in The Boys, but just in general, there's just a kind of a satire about our modern life in general. I mean, the most you see is like the kind of the parroting of like superheroes. You know what I'm saying? And like how obsessed we are as a culture with them.
Yeah, it's kind of combining superheroes with reality TV in a sense, and society's obsession with things like that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry, I'm chewing a truffle. Probably not the best thing to do when you're recording. But it's so interesting because like Disney is often held as like against that kind of mindset. And we just talked about The Acolyte, which is a show where people would be like, oh man, this is like the other side, this is like the liberal side, this is woke Star Wars, woke Disney. But they frame Vought often like Disney, but it was as if it was run by Fox,
Yes, I totally agree there. And they have this expo, parroting D23. What was it, Vought 52 or V52, something like that?
Something like that, yeah.
And they kind of parody, the phase reveals of the MCU, things like that. And I'm like, what are they gonna do to make this like bad or wrong? And man,
yeah,
man, they go far.
Yes. It's so bad, and I want to go into each individual part, but I love they really truly do nail the feeling of certain things. Like there's certain things, my mom just like fell in the kitchen with a bunch of pots. But I hope she's okay. She's laughing. So anyway, my mom making a cameo appearance in both recordings today. I have a family and kids, just for you viewers who just tuned in for the first time. But anyway, it is like so fucking spot on with the way they make fun of like the coverage of superheroes, the way people react to superhero movies and stuff. Like one of the moments that made me laugh out loud was when the guy that was like announcing it, the guy that's like the Tucker Carlson, was like, we're going to go through each movie in exhaustive detail. I love that.
Yeah, and then the infographic in the back was just absolutely littered with sequels and all this, and it was a funny little nod there.
Yeah. I mean, at some points it felt like a little too on the nose, but it was so great. Did you catch all the movie posters that they were flashing, or no?
I mean, I did pause it to look at a few here and there. I was just curious to see what they had on there. I saw a lot of Tech Night and they had Firecracker movies, things like that. Plenty of the Deep and A-Train movies.
Yeah. One of the things I didn't mention in my notes, but I also really fucking loved was when Tech Night comes out and he's like, okay, we're having a movie. It's been 1 year since my last movie, so we're ready for a reboot.
Yes.
And then it's called The Tech Night.
Yeah.
See, like I felt like that was like a little too spot on though, because he does say this one line of like, and you can tell by its gritty and serious nature and this Nirvana soundtrack. Like I thought that was like too much.
Wait. And then the 12-minute scene and it's black. That was great. I was laughing my ass off at that.
It's such a fucking funny show. I don't know if I put in the notes. I don't think I did, but like this definitely seemed like the fucking Generation V crossover episode.
Yeah, this is definitely the most we've seen of it so far here. Obviously the one of the main storylines here is the team going after the virus that's probably brought up. And then we see the characters that are not locked up from the Guardians of Godolkin. We see, was it Sam? I forgot the girl's name now.
Yeah.
But we see them, and we see Tech Knight. It was only in the one episode, though, of the show. He didn't do anything, he didn't have his problem, though, in this episode. So you feel like they were very much cameos here, just little minor appearances. I'm curious to see if they'll have much more prominence in the next few episodes or not. I'm kind of leaning towards no.
Right. I agree with you on that one too. And it's funny because like they really didn't play up the sexual depravity and any kind of stuff that you saw in this episode. There's a couple of references to things, especially with like the Deep, where he's talking to that Tucker Carlson guy about his wife, and then that guy brings up the Deep's girlfriend that's an octopus or whatever. Yep. But this episode was particularly violent with like the stuff on the farm, and then with Simon Pegg as well. We'll get into that in a second, but what I wanted to talk about was that we also get Giancarlo Esposito coming back.
Yeah, I was not expecting that whatsoever.
Yeah, and
I thought he was dead. Honestly, I forgot he even got locked up.
Right. I didn't expect him to be in prison. I also was like, wait, he was arrested. But what was funny about that is, when you watch something on your computer from Amazon, it has the little side trivia thing, or it tells you who's in the episode.
Yeah.
And for him, it said the enormously talented Giancarlo Esposito. and I just love that. You have not watched Breaking Bad, right?
I watched about half of it. I have not finished it. Yeah, I know.
I mean, is there a particular reason?
I'll tell you later.
Oh, okay. You probably have even told me to, and I'm just.
I think I have actually before, but it's fine if you don't remember. I wouldn't remember it either.
Okay. Well, Giancarlo Esposito, he's incredible in Breaking Bad. And then like he's good in like pretty much everything he's in. In this episode, he's kind of brought in for a one and done. And I was kind of worried that he was going to die at the very end, maybe killed by a flying sheep. But I think he survives towards the end. I was just really happy to see him. And I liked them going into Newman's relationship with him.
Yes. You almost forget about it in a way. I don't even remember why he did raise her.
That's a really good question. Yeah. Did she have a similar situation to her daughter where like she was sick or something and then she was given V? Do you remember that at all? Or
I don't remember it at all. I don't remember how they. I mean, I guess I need to go back and rewatch parts of season 3 because this is all original for the show. This whole aspect of this relationship here. They like the character of Newman is totally different. So I can't even reference the comic for it.
I think in this episode, they mentioned how she was like in an institute or something like that for a while too, and he got her out, I think.
Yes, she was in the Red River Institute, but I don't remember how or why she got out and why he took her out. Maybe he did see her power and wanted to make use of her in some way. I don't remember, so I definitely need to go back and rewatch or reinvestigate some of the previous season because I think that was all last season. That whole stuff came out.
Yeah, she really like becomes a bigger deal last season. Out of all the seasons. But so then let's go over the regular boys' characters. Let's talk about Starlight for a second. So Starlight, there's this one sequence where it looks like people broke into her headquarters and just wrote a whole bunch of crazy graffiti in her offices. Yeah. And I feel like she is this perfect example. I've seen a lot of this on Twitter recently where people talk about how much horrible harassment, death threats, rape threats, and stuff they get because they're connected to like a franchise. And I think that she's kind of being the cipher for that on this show, like this person who's kind of taking the brunt of stuff because of her publicity.
Yeah, it's just people taking things too seriously. It's an extension of what we saw in the second episode where that guy shows up looking for the children in the basement. But yeah, people take these online things like way too far. And it's kind of a reflection of that.
Yeah, and it's real nasty. I mean, she was essentially like doxxed too because like they brought up her pregnancy. I think in this episode they actually have the doctor on that like gave her the abortion too. You don't.
No, they just had some. I thought that too. I think it was just some doctor that is anti-abortion and was trying to, explain what happens to, a baby before whatever. And what did they bring up? Oh man, they brought up some example that this sounds kind of far-fetched. Maybe it wasn't. Who knows? I don't know.
Yeah,
but that to me is like a plant interview. Like they planted that guy who's gonna have an opinion that they can exploit. I don't think it was specifically that person who did it.
Yeah. Well, it's rough. They have this one sequence where you kind of see her face as she's hearing all this stuff, and she's just gone through a lot in the last few episodes. It's so much to the effect that I think it's like affecting her powers, right?
Yes, yeah. I think we've seen a little bit of it in the last episode, or there's some little hints of it there. She obviously had it when she was angry and beat the shit out of Firecracker, but yeah, she seems to be having some trouble with the powers, and is. I'm still always confused with what her powers actually exactly are. I mean, obviously she can use these light things, but is that it? Does she have something beyond that?
Yeah, she could like do light blast, and I think she's like stronger and more like invulnerable, and she can fly, right?
Yeah.
So like, is there a particular superhero you think you could compare it to, like in DC or Marvel?
I know the first thing that comes to mind is almost like Jubilee because the light thing, but
yeah.
But it seems to be there's a little bit more here and there. It's more of a who she represents, who she most closely represents in a Marvel and DC, like character wise.
Yeah. She's it's interesting because she's not really. I mean, like maybe like Mary Marvel or something, right? Because she's sort of like this like young girl kind of figure, but then she kind of goes to the dark side. But she goes to the dark side because the world is shit. She has to kind of join the
yeah. That's actually a really good example. Yeah.
And there's some similarities in their powers there, except for like the light stuff. So while she's going through this, her boyfriend is going through some horrible shit too. They inject Huey's father with V at the end of the last episode, and then boy, there's some crazy fucking side effects in this episode.
Yes. So we find out that it was the mom that did it. It fell out of the fetus fell out of his pocket, and it was just laying there.
Yeah.
You think you'd hold on to that a little tighter?
Yeah, maybe.
So at first, Huey's dad seems fine. He seems with it, and then you see that little kind of nod that he's forgetful. Because he kind of was that before, and Butcher warned him that it kind of just accelerates everything.
Yeah.
And that's really what happened here. So it's like kind of his Alzheimer's, I guess, or predisposition. Alzheimer's is accelerated here, and he causes a lot of damage, a lot of gross damage.
Yeah, it's crazy because like when you first find him, he's kind of covered in blood. There's a patient on the floor in a hospital room that he was walked into, and he's like holding their heart. And so you think, okay, he's like strong and he like punched a hole through the person. That's what you assume. But then he's like Shadow Cat or like Kitty Pryde, and he can like just phase through things.
Did you get a Shaun of the Dead vibe from the initial shot of him standing there?
Yeah, absolutely. But the thing is, I kept getting Kitty Pryde vibes, like when he would go through the walls. It reminded me of like X-Men 3 Kitty Pryde.
Yeah, he was phasing through things, and I imagine that's how it would go if you were learning how to use that power or didn't know how to use the power.
Yeah. One of the best moments, maybe the best moment of the episode, it's so fucked up and disturbing, is when there's this guy that's in the hospital bed. He's talking to the nurse, and it looks like a romantic comedy. He's like saying, like, "Oh, maybe give it a chance. I'll take you out to dinner." It just like runs into his body.
His mid-sentence.
Yeah.
And then he just spins around and the gore is falling out of the floor.
It's so fucked up, but I love it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh man. And so, we'll talk about like how that resolves itself towards the end, but there's some chaos there. Then we have this whole sequence that's on the farm. We'll get to the 7 in a second too. We have this whole sequence on the farm where essentially Newman has taken Giancarlo Esposito to this farm that he used to own. No, wait. She hasn't even fucking taken him there. He goes there because that's where he thinks she's going to be or where she's hiding stuff.
The boys offer him a pardon, and
Yeah.
he brings him there because that's where he thinks she'd be hiding the virus.
Yeah.
And she was.
Yeah. And, we go through these different levels, and basically, like, at first you see this, like, rabbit that's been worked on. All these cages are, like, burst open, and this lab is all messed up. Then we encounter V chickens, V sheep, V bull.
Yeah, very messy there. Again, all the red shirts die pretty much here, and everyone else is relatively fine.
Yeah.
With one exception maybe there.
Yeah.
But yeah, so there was a point initially too that you see Butcher with the rabbit who has an IV of temp V. And I'm looking at that, I'm like, it seems out of character for him to have compassion. I'm like, is he removing this so he can take that? Potentially. And I mean, it's still possible he might have snagged it. You don't know, but he doesn't seem to. They don't follow up on that in the episode other than seeing the rabbit later on.
Right. Okay. Well, I want to know about that because, there is this connection between Butcher and the rabbit. And when he sees the rabbit again, tentacles start coming out of it. The tentacles are kind of similar to the tentacles that come out of the daughter's mouth, Newman's daughter's mouth. But then besides that, Butcher has this like stuff crawling around inside of his body. What I was going to ask you was, in the comic, when they make V, is it literally just a compound that they make and that's it? Or is it like, oh, we got it from an alien, like a meteorite? Or like, is there any kind of shit like that? Or is it just literally they just make it in a lab?
I don't remember.
Yeah.
I binged that comic after the season 3 finale, or I was doing it during it and then finishing afterwards. And it's just when you consume something that that large in a short amount of time, it's impossible to remember anything.
That sounds so erotic. When you consume something that large in that amount of time, it's hard to remember anything.
Yeah, just go up there and pokes the back of your brain. I mean,
oh my god, he just took it and ran with it. Oh man, we're getting fucking saucy tonight. But I understand. It just, to me, it's like, it's almost like, is there some kind of like alien type thing? It's weird that there's these fucking tentacles starting to show up.
Yeah, no, it's interesting too, because is that the case with everyone that's had that happen?
Right.
I know that there's a correlation between getting V as an adult or getting it as a child and what the effects are.
Right.
But it seems interesting that Zoe has these tentacles coming out of her face, which she seems to be in control of.
Right.
And Butcher seems to not be in control of his there. But these are the only 3 characters we've seen have that. Doesn't seem to have happened to anybody else. So what is the commonality there between and also Zoe was given regular V, not temp V. So I'm curious to see why there's the connection with the temp V, why Butcher and the rabbit have it and no one else seems to.
Yeah, well, she's
taking temp V.
Wait, what?
Does Huey have the same thing as he was taking temp V as well?
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't know, man. I mean, because Zoe is the daughter of a soup, right? And is the only soup?
No.
She's an adopted daughter for Newman?
No. Zoe is the daughter of the doctor, and Newman.
Right, and Newman's a soup.
Oh yeah, duh. Sorry.
Right. So that's what I'm saying. Like, but is that uncommon for there to be like? Because I thought that like Ryan was the first one that was like a natural. You know what I'm saying?
No. Ryan was born with powers. But Zoe was given V by Newman in the end of the last season because she was sick or something like that. I don't remember what was wrong with her, but something was wrong with her, and that was Newman's way of saving her life. Essentially, was giving her V.
Okay. Right. Yeah. Man, so much has happened on the show. It's crazy when you like watch this episode. You're like, holy shit, there's so much going on this show, but it's all good. It's all compelling. You know.
Yeah.
So like one of the things too is let's take it back to the 7 and this expo. You have this fucking horrible fucking scene where I can you describe it?
Okay. First they're showing you about a show that's all about Black heroes, and then the Deep comes up and he says that there's some new advertising technology that will change what the viewer sees, basically based on their race and the stereotypes surrounding them. So they said that, you know, while a white person would see an IPA in the Deep's hand, a black person would see a Vought peach cognac, and you just they cut to a few like African Americans in the crowd.
Yeah,
and they're just like
yeah,
like, what the fuck, man? Like even the people there, like what the fuck is this?
Yeah, and it's of course it's the Deep that's saying that, and he says some stupid stuff right before he does it too. He's like, "Go woke, get yoked," or something like. He says some stupid shit like that, and then one of the details I liked about that sequence though was that they would show people in the audience, and a lot of the people would be like, "Okay, well, there's a couple of black guys, they're A-Train," but then you would have like there's a white guy who's A-Train, or there's a black guy who's Homelander, and I like that because that's something that you do get in cosplay where people are like, well, yeah, Superman's always white, but then I'm a black person. I want to dress like Superman. And there's the idea of like the comics and stuff make it be like, well, this person has to be white. This person has to be black. But like people, the fans, you know, can be whoever they want to be. I like that detail.
Yeah, I agree there. I think you should be able to, you know, dress up as whoever you want there. Don't do blackface, but yeah.
Yeah. And but then so you say don't do blackface, but then like the very next scene, it's interesting that they edit these scenes in such a way. The very next scene is Homelander talking to Ryan, and he's talking about how rough his life was. He's like, "Oh, I had to like be told where to stand, what to say, what to do. You know, it's like being a slave. It's like worse than being a slave." He says that right after this African American scene.
Yeah. And this might have been one of the more terrifying scenes in the episode to me too, is that, you know, Homelander's actually getting through to Ryan, which is really bad. You see him kind of, you know, there's that little detail of them walking around with the milkshakes all the time now. Passing that on, and then he kind of gives this speech where how, you know, we have no more rules, we do whatever we want.
It's just the two of us.
We're free. Just the two of us. And you know, but he's still manipulating him in a way. Because he gets him to essentially bully that director who is harassing the production assistant, which it's weird that you feel bad for him in a way, but because it's like it's coming from a bad place. It's a bad thing getting corrected by a worse thing, I guess. Because he's corrupting this kid to think that this is okay and this is right and this is how you handle things, which is it's not.
No, it's a really interesting sequence, right? Because there's like 4 different layers going on there, right? Because the director is essentially being a creep. He's because of his power, he's like hitting on this intern or whatever, this girl, making her feel uncomfortable. So you're like, yeah, get him. He deserves this, right? And he's so pathetic too, because you have 2 scenes with him, and he's like, Homelander says, okay, give Ryan your credit card, give him your keys to your Jaguar, and he just like gives them willingly. He's like completely spineless. You're like, yeah, do it to this guy, get this guy. But then like usually Homelander or one of the 7 will like they themselves intimidate someone or scare them, and then they'll maybe even use their powers and hurt someone. But in this, they have a human, like the girl is the one that gets to do the violence, you know? And so it's kind of interesting because like Ryan says he wants to help people, and like seeing through his eyes, it's like he is helping this girl. This guy's being a creep to her. She's getting to she's able to stand up to him because of his help. But it's like this extreme violent thing that like Homelander would do.
Yeah, and it just seems like he's slipping into that, you know, not really realizing what's right and wrong here.
Yeah, Yeah. What's so great about the show is that there's always that sort of like, oh, we can push it further. We can push it further. Because the guy like apologizes to her and he's like, oh, that wasn't good enough. Get on your knees. He gets on his knees. Then like, oh, he's still lying. And then he's like, okay.
Yeah.
So just go ahead.
And that is very much how Homelander does that. Every time he does that to somebody, like it's the exact way he's doing it.
Yeah. So that was very scary. Just like you said, it's like, you think that Ryan is kind of away from Homelander, maybe even leaning towards Butcher. But in this episode, Homelander's finally making that connection and kind of swaying him to the dark side.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, we also get Ashley in that whole sequence, and Ashley has that interaction with the guy that is basically the Tucker Carlson counterpart.
So this is what I didn't realize. We've seen some scenes with Ashley, and was that Tucker Carlson before? Like that guy? Like
yes,
he was
like
tied up and getting his balls crushed and all this shit. I did not make that connection.
Yeah, well, because when they do the recaps and stuff, they show that scene, and he's like on the ground, and she's like, "Who wants to get?" My mom's right over there. Who wants to get their balls crushed? And he's like, "Me," right?
I honestly thought that was somebody. I didn't make the connection that was the same person.
The fucking voice he uses, I'll always remember that scene because he's like, "Me." Yeah. But she gets her revenge on this guy too. There's a lot of like kind of creep guys. He's like, oh well, if I'm going to be dominated, it has to be by someone who actually dominates. And then she, working with A-Train, sets this guy up to take the fall for leaking the information.
Yeah, because Sage obviously knows that it was A-Train. So
yeah. So I mean, like, you have this whole sequence where Homelander's like, okay, we're taking this to the next level. We have to be cruel sometimes to get through and do this. And they don't. It's interesting because they don't show which soups really go to town on this guy. Like the Deep gets in on it, and Firecracker gets in on it, but they don't show like Black Noir or A-Train if they do it.
But doesn't Homelander like order A-Train to do it? And he seemingly he doesn't. I swear he said he called out his name specifically, but I could be hearing things.
Yeah, I don't think he did. I think he just was like, okay, well, now we need to do this, and like, let's get justice on this guy. And I don't think he says a specific person.
Yeah, and this is also in the scene where he's talking to the members of the Seven, and then the Guardians of Godolphin are there, and Tech Knight's there as well. And this is what essentially is setting up his ultimate goal here is to have a world run by soups and
by soups.
Yeah.
And
he's gonna kind of call everyone together to stand with him when the time comes, I guess. And this was kind of like the first act of proving their loyalty.
Yeah, really scary. It really actually feels kind of like Stephen King kind of horror when like you start to get people to do bad things, like good people or maybe people are in the middle. Like you're like, oh, come over to the dark side, do this. Like it felt like a Stephen King kind of thing. So we have this, and this could be kind of like the last thing we could kind of wrap this up, is that on the farm, Newman finds her, I guess her husband, right? Or I mean, it's at least the father of her child. Yeah. Right. And it's played by Omid Abtahi, the good old doctor from The Mandalorian, who's also like working on a secret project that has a big impact on the story. And we know him as Hawkman from the JSA movie.
Was he?
He was Hawkman in that movie. Yeah. Fuck yeah.
No, he wasn't.
Okay. I mean, don't believe me. I think he was.
No, that was Hawkman was oh god, what's the actor's name? I don't remember.
Okay, you're gonna look it up and you're gonna tweet message me after Twitter, I bet.
Yes, I am.
I mean, message me after the recording. Anyway, so did you think that he was dead when they found his leg?
I'll tell you that I didn't expect what actually happened. Prior in the episode, we saw scenes with Butcher and Kessler, and they're kind of talking about working together, and then the only ones that can do things a certain way, and and then in all the chaos on the farm, the only named character that is not found is this doctor,
right?
And all they find is his leg,
right?
And so the episode ends with the doctor in captivity. Butcher cut his leg off, and captured him.
Yeah.
So they interrogate him and then make him continue to create this virus to take out Homelander. And there's this look on Butcher's face and this smile that was rivaled, all these creepy Homelander facial expressions in previous episodes. And I was not expecting that.
No. It was fantastic. It was a good twist. And I was going to complain and say, like, oh, well, how did he have the time to, like, cut this guy's leg off, keep the guy from, like, screaming out, maybe he knocked him unconscious, and then, like, throw the leg somewhere, hide the guy somewhere, because right when they're getting attacked by these sheep. But there is this, like, long sequence where the sheep is just vomiting, on the ground. So I was like, okay, probably during that sequence is when he did it. But he had to be, like, super quick,
Yeah. And, heck, maybe he even took that 10V to give him a little boost.
There you go. You might be onto something there. Yeah. So, I mean, we get other big revelations. Of course, the most sad one is that Huey's dad does eventually die.
Yeah. And Huey has to let go. He said he doesn't want to turn into Jar Jar.
Right. There's a whole story about Jar Jar. And then
Huey wouldn't let go of.
Yeah. And then what do you call it? His last words are Tom Hanks, which I think your wife would probably appreciate that, right?
Yes, or maybe it'll make it more sad. I don't know. But yeah, that was a difficult scene to watch, I will say.
I know. I love Simon Pegg so much. I don't want to see him die in anything.
Yeah, but just the idea of Huey coming to the realization, and also he gets called Wee Huey. Like
I know. At the very end there.
A nice touch. But he has to make the decision to let go here, and really absolutely heartbreaking moment. It's almost weird that I guess you could say I don't know. I don't even how there's like an A story and a B story. I don't even know what to call what here. Like, is that the B story? But if it is, it's an incredible side story,
Yeah. Well, there's like an A, B, C, D, E story, because there's even a thing with Frenchie where, like, he turns himself in at the very end.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's all this stuff going on. There's so many different threads going on. But in general, it's just a really great show. How many episodes left do we have?
I guess there's just 3.
Wow. Well, I'm looking way more forward to those 3 episodes than I am for the last 3 of The Acolyte.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. But as per usual, I really dug them. I'm actually going out of town for the next week, so I'm not going to be able to record next week with Brian. But if you guys enjoyed our boys conversation, make sure that you come back for next week. Was there anything you wanted to say about the boys, too, that I'm skipping over?
We still didn't talk about the end of the previous episode, but at this point, we covered everything else, so why bother?
Yeah, man. Cool. All right. Well, then, I had a lot of fun, and we hope you guys can subscribe and also like this stuff, too. Tell us what you thought about this episode, and we will see you guys next time.